Okay, so the next step on our property development is we have to have a forester come out and write a plan with us on how we're going to care for our forest, because we just bought 30-acre forest. And it happens to be in a prior owner had it in it's a timber classification, and so what it does is they encourage people to grow trees. And so as a thank you, I guess, or as an encouragement to us doing that and keeping our timber designation, we get a very, very, very low tax base on this property. And so, but we need to, we have to learn how to be foresters now. So that was a sort of a added layer of complexity, if you will. And this property has not been managed for, I would say, over 30 years, maybe close to 40 years. So there's a lot of growth here. The trees are very thick. There's a very big diversity of species. So far I've counted over a dozen different types of trees in here, and I haven't even gotten through the whole thing yet, but that was just in a very short radius of where we're standing. And so we're going to learn more about that today. We're not exactly sure what we're going to learn today because we don't know how this goes, but we have to have this plan. We have 60 days after we purchase the property to reset the plan and get it into the county in order to continue this classification. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to find out from this forester how that goes. We're going to have to pay him a few $100s to help us write this plan. He's probably going to ask us a lot of questions, and we're going to ask him a lot of questions because we don't know exactly what we're supposed to be doing here, but we're going to find out. And we probably are going to need to select log the property, and what I mean by that is we're going to need to cut some trees out because there's a lot, they're very thick and they're actually competing with each other, and plus we also want to do that as a to keep the fire hazard down because of we're in a forested area here, and we don't want to have that happen. So we're going to be working on that, and we're going to find out. So when we find out more about it, we'll add on and let you know how this goes, but right now we're just waiting for him to show up. And I don't know what we're going to have to do yet. We may be doing a lot of climbing around the trees. I don't know. Hoping he's going to give us an idea on the value of the timber that we have here. We anticipate there's a pretty substantial market value on this timber that we have here. There's a lot of big trees in here, and we're not sure what the logging values are at this point, but we know we do need to come in here and thin these out, and so that's what we're going to learn to do today as soon as he gets here, and then when we find out more, we'll tell you.
That was kind of what we thought.
So once you thin this out, those trees will have space to grow up nice and fast.
Well, maybe I'm looking at it wrong. That's why he's taping.
Yeah, stay in the shade.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, we've changed site here. We've got pine grass
Yeah.
understory.
So for about the next 2.5 hours, we walked around with these two very knowledgeable gentlemen, and they were counting trees within certain distances of each other and per acre, and not only how many kinds of trees, but how many trees. And they just gave us a lot of education about the diversity as well for the different types of plants and things that were on the property. And we didn't have any what they call noxious weeds or plants, really. So that was very good. And they were really able to tell us just how healthy the ground was and what we can do as stewards of this land to help manage it and to help the trees and the different plant life grow well so that it continues to support the very diverse, immense amount of wildlife that we have on the property. So that's just super important to us. And it was great to walk with these two. They have got immense knowledge about the different types of flora and fauna and what they mean and whether or not they're, you know, healthy for animals, or like there's certain things that are, you know, cows are not good for cows. And things like that. So it was just a really neat experience to be able to walk through the property with a forester like this and be able to really understand just exactly what we have in this property. And we have a beautiful, very healthy forest that we now get to manage for many, many years, and maybe even our grandchildren after we're gone can manage it.
Grayer bark, and the aspens have a more whiter bark, and then you've got gray birch.
Some birch in there?
I haven't seen any white birch yet, papyrifera.
Yeah, some gray birch.
How about that pink flower thing right there with that? To your left.
So this is black cottonwood here. See the lighter colored tree?
Yeah. Okay, that was really cool. We just spent the last couple hours with the foresters out here on the property and learning a lot about what we need to do to start being the stewards of this tract of forest, and so it was really enlightening and really gave us a lot of information that we really wanted. So they identified a lot of plant and tree species, and they were identifying, looking for potential invasive species versus trying to remember the word they used, indicator species. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
what does it indicate?
well, it indicates the health of the forest. And so they're looking at, for instance, certain types of trees, when there's been some clearing or excavation done, are more of a invasive type fill-in species versus the trees that we want to have. And you know, the nice thing is that we've got probably about 24 different tree species on the property, so very diverse. We're not a monoculture of trees of one type, which is really kind of neat because it really makes it interesting to see the property with the diversity of trees. It just gives it a really nice feel, but it also creates a lot of health and diversity so that we don't have, you know, just like any other crop, if you've got all of one thing, you can have problems. But when you've got a mixture like this, it really makes it work out nice. And so we got a good report card, I guess I would tell you that. They were very impressed with the property. Now the property does need some work. There's no doubt about that. So one of the things that they learned was we walked through here and we determined the density of trees per acre. And so what they're looking for in an ideal scenario is 150 to 200 trees per acre is good for fire safety and suppression, for one thing, and for the health of the trees that are growing on the property. We want to make sure they have enough room and they're not competing, especially on a dry year, because if you get into a dry situation and these trees are competing for water, they'll start dying because they are not going to get enough water. And so they say we need to have these trees spaced out farther. So right now, in comparison, where we're at is we're over 300 trees per acre. So we really got about a third or so more trees per acre than what we should have for a good healthy forest. And so what we're going to have to do is a lot of work, because there's a lot of trees to take out, but we're going to work on that over time. And but what we want to do is make sure that we have a good mixture of trees and some good healthy spacing of the trees so that they're going to do well. And they said that, you know, we're going to have a good marketable crop of trees in about 15 years if we do things correctly. So forward to this, we're going to have to take out some of these trees and sell them to the lumber mills in order to keep the process going. Now, why are we talking about all this? Well, This piece of property is in what they call a timber classification
For state taxes, real
So
estate
tax-wise for the property taxes. And so we have about 30 acres of trees here. You wouldn't believe how cheap it is, taxes per year. I'm going to tell you, it's ridiculously low. It's $32 and how much?
34 cents.
$32.34 a year for property tax on this property. That's it. And that's because they encourage people to grow trees, and they want to incentivize us to keep these trees here, and so they make it very, now in comparison, the beach property that we have, which is about 2/3 of an acre, is how much a year?
$1,700.
$1,700 a year for property taxes on 2/3 of an acre. So you can see the big difference. If this was out of the timber classification, this would be considerably more, in the thousands per year for taxes on this size of a piece of property. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in, and they're working on writing the forestry plan for this property, and we're going to come in and clear out a spot, and so we can put in our house in our homestead. But the rest of the property is going to remain in trees and forestry, so we're going to have to do some clearing and cleaning to get this in good shape. So that's going to be part of the process. But I just want to let you know that's what we're up to. We got a good forest stand here. We got a lot of nice diversity of trees. You can see we have some big mother trees. If you can pan up, that's a 100-foot tall southern yellow pine and ponderosa pine, and it creates all these guys. This is the babies. So that's a mother tree. She drops her pine cones. These guys are growing up in this clearing here. This was an old cut for a log road from probably about 40 years ago. That's the last time this forest has had a haircut, if you will, and it's overdue. And so we're going to have to come in and do some work and clear. There's a lot of down trees. There's dead trees in here. There's trees that are just not in good shape that we need to get out of the way, and so that we can have a nice healthy stand of trees left when we get all said and done. So that's what we're up to in that designation. So you can see, if Anissa turns, you can see that we have some work to do. You can see a lot of really thickly, closely spaced trees. We got trees that are not doing too well, that have had some snow damage. You can see some of these up the drive up here are mashed over, and that's just heavy snow coming down and crushing these younger trees sometimes, and so those need to go. They're not any good at this point, and so we're going to come through and thin this out and get it in better shape. So yeah, like this one here, I don't even know, somehow that got knocked over. And so there's just a really thick, you can walk 10 feet into this and disappear. That's how thick it is. And so we're going to be working on improving that. We want to make this a little bit more park-like when we get done, and have some nice trails to walk up through here and observe our nature that we have and be good stewards of the land. So we've got a lot of nice species of birds, small mammals, big mammals, and so as we clean this up, it's going to make it more better for them.
That was something that was really awesome that the foresters told us, was that we have a ton of diversity on this land, not only the trees, but of the plants, which means we have a huge diversity of wildlife on here. So we were very, very excited about that. It depends on what your county requirements are to have a timber or forest designation. You're going to want to find out in your local county area, if your land is in that designation, what you need to do in order to keep it there. We had to hire a forester and have a plan that's registered with the county, telling them what we're going to do to maintain this land. The other thing is if your land is not in that tax designation, you need to find out with your county, can you get it put into that? Because you can do that in our county. If it's not in timber designation, you can apply to put it in that. So you'll have to check out not only your state, but your local county. So we were very stoked and excited. The foresters actually gave us a lot of encouragement, and we don't know anything about really managing a forest, but they told us how far apart the trees need to be, and just which ones were look sick, or there was a couple that had some rot, something started. They said we have no beetles, which I guess beetles is a bad thing to get in the trees. So that was very encouraging and very inspiring. And so we're very excited about that. It'll be a cool part of, being able to watch these big beautiful trees, us grow more trees like that. And like Kevin said, there are so many here that are over 100 feet tall. It's very cool.
Yeah. So we got a lot of these little guys. These are called grand firs. They're a real pretty little tree. So this is a bunch of the babies that have come off this mother tree, and this is what they look like when they get really big. That's a very large example of what one of these is. And so you can see a lot of smaller trees in here, and these are not as desirable of a tree, and plus they're so darn close together that we're not getting good sunlight, and
they're sucking water, too much water from each other, so
competing.
they'll die if it gets dry.
So we got to be careful of that, and we want these to thin out so that there's good fire suppression in here.
Yes,
So
because we are in a wildfire area.
It's a big project, but we're up for it. So it's just we're going to take it in bite-sized chunks, because it could be overwhelming when you look at 30 acres like this. But if you just take 1 acre at a time and then just kind of keep working your way out, we'll get there. And so you'll be able to see the process. You can kind of see the before and then the after when we get done. So,
and we had to buy some special tools. Nothing very expensive, by the way, though, but we did. So Kevin was very excited. He got more tools.
Yeah, got more tools.
And he'll go over those with you and kind of why he chose what he chose too as we start doing the process.
Yeah, and then we'll show you how things progress as we go. Lots of projects on this property. Obviously, that's just one of them. Is forest management in here, and then we obviously got our building projects that we're doing, so we can move on to the property. And we're in a 4-season climate here. We're pushing to try to get the infrastructure in before snow hits, and so that's we'll see if we get it done or not. Because of this year with our good buddy COVID, he's kind of backed us up on everything, and so people are behind. We had to, there's a lot of shutdowns, and so there's a lot of catching up to do in some of the building trades and construction trades, and so we're hoping we can get some of this infrastructure in and at least get ourselves a little cabin on here before we get snowed in. So, see you on the next video.
Be sure and join us next week as we start the very emotional and painful process of removing trees from the property. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button and click the notification bell so that you won't miss out on any of our future videos as we take you along this journey with us.